Hello and welcome to part 2 of my October mini-series. This episode is going to go over my favorite horror game villains. If you haven't seen my first episode going over my favorite pixelated horror games, check the card here. And if you feel I missed any or you'd like to share your favorites, be sure to in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe too for future episodes, as well as horror gameplay videos. Villains. The characters you love to hate or hate to love. Whether the main antagonist of the game gone mad with power, driven to act out, or just working for their goals the wrong way, the villain is likely the reason to continue playing a game. Today I'd like to go over my favorite horror game villains and talk about why I find them so fascinating. From the mad men to the misunderstood, these are my top 5. Number 5. The Raincoat Killer, Deadly Premonition. Deadly Premonition is a weird game. While the voice acting and mannerisms of the characters in the town of Greenville all seem off, the game has a phenomenal story that I truly enjoyed. As York travels through the town, interacting with characters and learning more of the backstory behind the town, a bunch of suspicious red seeds in an accident which has struck from all public records, he's frequently attacked by a raincoat-wearing assailant known, appropriately, as the Raincoat Killer. He swings his axe with precision and force, with York just barely keeping himself alive, only for the would-be assassin to wag his finger before running off to another future battle. While I do think the killer should just finish York off then and there, the story would kinda suck then. Instead, you're gifted with learning the source of the Raincoat's killer power, the aforementioned red seeds, and a ritual requiring multiple human sacrifices. You also find that the origin of the Raincoat Killer stems from a 1950s outbreak of extreme aggression, where neighbors and families turn on each other and one prolific murderer donned the raincoat and went on a spree. Back in the current day, a copycat killer has taken the mantle, and York is faced with fighting the demonic beast that is created by the ritual and the power of the seeds. I enjoyed the Raincoat Killer as a villain primarily because of the design. The dirty red raincoat, glowing red eyes, and silent nature of the monster is pretty imposing, and the failure to respond to attacks with the correct key press can lead to an untimely demise for York. As the story progresses and you learn of the connections characters have to both the past and current Raincoat Killers, it adds a lot of lore to him, and I really enjoy learning about the characters' motivations. Number 4. Stefano Valentini, The Evil Within 2. With an artistic flair and armed with a deadly camera, Stefano Valentini taunts you throughout The Evil Within 2, leaving a trail of frozen and repeated destruction in his wake. Stefano was a war journalist prior to the game, and an explosion that took his eye led to his first gruesome photo, capturing the subject in the midst of being shredded by shrapnel. In his quest for the perfect shot, he started murdering models and mutilating their bodies, calling his works art. Following this, he was tested by Mobius and, using his pathological ways, was able to be deemed sane and implemented into the virtual world of Union to add an artistic personality to the simulation. His objective throughout the game is always to achieve the perfect shot of death, and he becomes enraged when Sebastian destroys some of his work, taking the fight directly to him. Eventually, Stefano meets his demise following a fight against both him and his pet monster, the Obscura, leading him to say his death is the ultimate masterpiece. Stefano has an obsession with death and trying to capture it in its raw form, and his abilities of teleportation and weapon of choice, which is his camera, can freeze or put a subject in slow motion. It's such an interesting detail I've always enjoyed, and I think that some of the cutscenes with him are very well paced and fantastic. Number 3. Alexander, Amnesia. A genius in his time and almost otherworldly, Alexander is the primary antagonist of Amnesia: The Dark Descent. He's masqueraded as various royalty for decades and spends his time attempting to manipulate the mysterious orb, a supernatural item with extreme power, in an attempt to cross dimensions and return home. His horror machines and experiments require essence, drained from his victims under intense fear or torture, and the amount of missing people have caused concerns nearby. Your character awakens in the house, traveling through its dark hallways and creaky doors, meanwhile dodging the Gatherers, corrupted humans who act as Alexander's guards, as you attempt to stop Alexander from starting the machine. As you progress, you find that you're not as innocent as thought. As a close friend of Alexander's, you murdered a mother and child in cold blood and drank a potion designed to erase your memories. Determined to set things right, you make your way into the darkest depths of the mansion and confront Alexander as his machine whirs to life. Sabotaging that machine, you allow the interdimensional beast that Alexander was summoning to appear, which promptly destroys Alexander and leaves you for dead as the portal breaks down. In my eyes, Alexander is that perfect mix of otherworldly horror and humanity. He's got this greed for power and attempts to get whatever he can, no matter how many corpses he leaves in his track, and has no regards to the people he's hurt, even close friends like Daniel and Agrippa. He feeds off of fear, enjoying torturing his subjects and leaving them husks, which he then converts into his guards, and he ties to other dimensions and monsters so grand in scale it's hard to comprehend. It makes them the worst in both humanity and cosmic horror. Number 2, Ouma Wade, Fear series. Alright, 2 things scare me the most. Well, other things too, but 2 things here. Telepathic abilities and children. Okay, maybe not all children scare me, but Ouma Wade deserves this spot. Ripped from society at a young age and forced through torture and experimentations to grow her powers, Ouma will occasionally pop up randomly throughout Fear, providing both jump scares and story beats as Pointman is forced to go toe-to-toe against mind-controlled soldiers guided by Paxton Fettel. Fettel is doing all of this in an act of revenge, and it's revealed over the course of the game that both your character and Fettel are related, and your mother is none other than Ouma. In the final battle with Ouma, she reaches out to you, asking for the touch of her son, but instead is gifted with bullets until she retreats. The sequels add a lot more to Ouma's lore, developing an infatuation with Beckett to the point she forces him to conceive a 3rd child, and the fate of that child is left unknown by the end of the series. Ouma has a solid backstory, betrayed by her father, forced to watch her sister gain all his love while she was tortured and trained, and eventually forced to give birth to 2 children at such a young age. It's a classic revenge story with clones, pyrokinesis, and plenty of blood. Before hopping into number 1, let's take a look at some of my honorable mentions from various series and games that I think deserve an honorable mention. Number 1, Sullivan Knopf, Outlast 2. Have you ever watched a televangelist on TV and think, what if he wanted to go to war? Would people follow? Would people ask questions? Papa Knoth is a prime example of what happens when someone is able to manipulate people so well that no one questions the leader. With a fleet of followers, including his right-hand Marta, who is a nightmare of a monster herself, he's able to claim a compound named Temple Gate in the woods and attacks any outsider they consider a threat on sight. He hands out justice swiftly for anyone who questions his commands. Believing himself to be a disciple of God, he aims to stop the apocalypse, which he claims God told him would be born from his flock. Reading the letters in game in the Gospel of Knoth reveals the many messed up rules he enacted, spreading diseases throughout the congregation and then claiming it was due to sin, allowing incestuous relations and eventually the murder of all babies in an attempt to prevent this end of days. Eventually, this rumored child of Doomsday is born, and Knoth takes the only step he can think of to attempt to save his flock from the upcoming horrors he envisioned, slaughtering everyone before asking Blake to destroy the Antichrist in his arms. Knoth then takes his own life, pulling a knife across his neck. Knoth terrifies me, not due to his size and stature, but because of his following. In today's media, and I'm not even talking about religious or political affiliations, there's just so many people who see one person as infallible and will listen to anything they say without thinking for themselves. Be it a politician, religious leader, athlete, or celebrity, the word of one can influence so many. And while I like to say Knoth is an extreme of this, we have proof that word can be law if spoken by the right person at the right time for some people. Jim Jones was an obvious influence, leaving his group People's Temple in a shootout against the CIA before encouraging, and in some cases forcing his congregation into a mass suicide. With media being able to travel so fast via today's technology, and the internet hate bandwagon becoming a wildfire across all platforms, I really do encourage everyone to look into claims and, more importantly, think for yourself. Alright, well, sorry that last one got so heavy towards the end, but this has been my favorite villains in horror games. Did I miss a few, or do you have your own favorite horror game villain? Let me know in the comments down below, and again, make sure to subscribe so you can catch the rest of my October mini-series, as well as horror gameplay videos. I hope to see you all next time, and be sure to have a great day, and remember to burn bright.